Alright, so nagbabalik tayo sa ating violin tips and tricks. And for today's video, kakaibang video na yung gagawin natin. We're not gonna talk about techniques and all that stuff. What we're gonna talk about is actually cleaning, no? Paglilinis ng ating instruments and bows. And it's actually very important. It's a very important part of maintaining your instruments is cleaning, and we don't give that much attention to it, and some people give too much that it ends up harming their instruments or doing more harm than good for their instruments. Okay, so when we talk about cleaning our instruments, syempre, ang kailangan natin intindihin is that we don't wash our instruments, okay? So, when we talk about cleaning, there are certain steps we could take on our own, and there are certain steps that professionals should be the ones doing those types of services for your instruments. Okay? So, pag sinabi natin kailangan natin linisin yung instrumento, ano ba yung importante doon, di ba? Okay. So, keeping your instrument clean from rosin buildup, residue, debris is very, very important. Kasi, especially for stringed instruments, di ba? The way it works is that nagva-vibrate yung body ng ating instrument. And when there is a buildup of material, di ba? Yun nga lang mahawakan mo siya. It really changes the way it sounds, the way it works, and the way you play it. So, konting layer lang ng dust or rosin residue could really affect your playing. Yung projection, tone quality, tone color, no? Kahit na sabihin mo parehas na parehas yung pagtugtog mo, if your instrument is not clean enough for it to work properly, marami kang problems na may encounter. You could also have, if you have sweaty hands, di ba? Medyo pawisin yung kamay mo. You could also encounter nagiging sticky. No? Nagiging sticky na yung fingerboard. So, it's harder for you to shift, harder for you to move your hands on your instrument. No? Yan. So, ano ba yung dapat na panlinis natin? And ano ba yung dapat na mga products na iwasan natin gamitin? So, basically, parang prevention is better than cure when it comes to cleaning your instrument. So, routinely, dapat pag ginagamit mo siya, every time you finish using your instrument, whether you played for 30 minutes, whether you played for 2-3 hours, you should be constantly wiping off any dust or rosin residue that will be left on your instrument, diba? Just have to keep it as clean as possible, no? I had a violin dati. Syempre, bata pa ako nag-start. I didn't know that you had to clean them off. Then, ang nangyari na sa kanya, naging black na yung dito na part. As in, puro rosin na talaga yung and it was hard to take off. And I used different materials. I think, nasira ko din siya dahil doon, no? So, you have to understand that there is varnish, diba? That's why it's a little bit shiny, no, yung mga instruments. Whether you're using cheap instrument or nice expensive one, there is a protective layer, no, para siyang coating, no, to make sure that your wood is protected from, the humidity of the air, yan. And putting other chemicals on it can be bad, no? Sabi nila, I heard parang lagyan mo daw ng pledge, yung pang surface cleaner, ganyan. So for me personally, if you're not really aware of what those things are doing to your instrument, whether nakikita mo may nagbabago or wala, it's better not to use them at all, no? So, yun nga, sabi nga natin, prevention, meaning, wag mo nang hintayin na mag-build up yung residue. Wag mo nang hintayin mangitim, no? So, kapag meron ka na nakikita na konting mga dust particles that are setting in, you just need a microfiber towel, no? Just wipe and wipe and wipe. Yun yung pinaka-importante. You just need to wipe off anything na makikita nyo dyan, no? Wala namang problem. Use microfiber towel, yung walang hindi naghihimulmol, no? So, usually, you can buy these at the hardware, ganyan, yung mga car cleaning kits, di ba? So, kailangan wala masyadong mga fibers na makikita dun sa ano mo, para hindi rin maapektuhan yung playing, no? So, just wipe it after every use, no? So, even the lower part right here, kasi this is where most of the rosin will build up. Kasi nandito yung bowing. Doon tayo nagbo-bow. And wiping the strings, di ba? Of course, you have to wipe the strings and you have to wipe underneath this area right here. So, what I do, or a lot of us do, is put your cloth underneath and just wipe. No? Kailangan talaga malinis mo siya ng ayos. Now, here, wala masyadong problem when it comes to rosin kasi hindi naman masyado. But, of course, dust could also affect. Even the longevity of your strings can be affected. No? And, syempre, if you have sweaty hands, no, you should always wipe your strings dry. No? Yeah. Siguro, in another video, let's talk about what you can do when you have sweaty hands, sweaty palms. But for now, if you have sweaty hands, just make sure you always wipe your strings and the fingerboard para hindi agad masira. Because it really affects your strings, especially if your strings are made of certain materials na mas apektado ng sweat. No? You have to constantly wipe it down. Okay? Another area that a lot of people take for granted is underneath here, sa ilalim ng tailpiece. So the same thing as you do on top, you just put it underneath the tailpiece and then just wipe under. Pati ilalim ng inyong mga chin rest, make sure you wipe under those para siguradong wala siyang matitirang mga dust particles and rosin residue. No? So that's for the violin. Wiping is really just the best way. Now, if there are really bad rosin buildups or talagang masama na yung condition niya, you just really have to have it cleaned by a professional, no? Don't try to do it on your own kasi baka masira, no? When I was a kid nga, parang lagi sinasabi, alcohol. So, ayun, inalcohol ko. Nung inalcohol namin, natanggal yung varnish. So, varnish is protecting your instrument. It also does something with the way your instrument sounds, di ba? They've been talking about the Stradivari varnish daw or what other types of varnish they actually use. It also somewhat affects the sound, no? Don't quote me on this, pero syempre, kung ano man yung naka-apply dyan ngayon, it's meant to be there. So, kung natanggal siya, tas you have to reapply it on your own, please don't. Makaka-apekto siya sa tunog. That's why we don't put stickers, di ba, on our instruments. That's why the painted ones na nakikita natin is for novelty. It's not really for something you can use on a regular basis. Kasi nga, even the varnish affects the sound quality that your instrument has. So, make sure that, yun, punas-punasan nyo. Now, if the varnish is fading, maybe if you can have it revarnished by a professional, by a luthier, diba? Much better. But don't do it on your own. These types of things na dapat iwasan natin kasi it's not gonna help you out. Now, if maliit lang naman yung spots, no, may mga konting scratches, hayaan nyo na lang. Just wipe and wipe. No, don't use any other materials. Okay, before there was this trend, I don't know, na they use alcohol daw on the strings, but there's been studies that came out na kahit na hindi nagbabalat yung strings mo, even if there's rosin buildup already here, when you use alcohol, it penetrates into the winding. So, naapektuhan yung core ng strings. So, humihina yung quality ng strings mo, and in the long run, your tuning stability will be affected. Kasi pati yung core, hindi na siya nasi-stretch ng ayos. So, those types of things happen. So, just make sure that you wipe it properly, you clean it properly after every use. No? Yun yung pinaka-importante doon. Now, let's go to the bow. So, when it comes to the bow, you have to wipe the stick. Okay? So, wiping the stick, kasi the same thing, the stick provides you with some sort of projection, no? Dito yung tumatapon or kumakapit yung tunog natin with the stick of the bow, not really with the hair. The hair just makes the sound, but the stick parang amplifies that sound. Okay, so once you wipe that up, no? Minsan yung iba kasi sa sobrang tagal na nakikita nila nagkakaroon ng mga iba-ibang black spot. So just continually wiping it, no? Kasi mahirap basain yung kahoy, no? Because wood absorbs water and it retains water, so baka masira yung bow mo pag nabasa siya. Minsan namumuti, no? Especially if the varnish is stained with water, di ba? So nakikita naman natin yung when it comes to furniture, di ba? Ganun din yung effect niya. Papangit siya and baka pumangit din yung quality ng sound. So just wipe. Yun lang siguro yung pwede nating main takeaway from this video is after every use, wipe down your instruments, no? Whether you played for 30 minutes nga, 20 minutes, you played for a single piece, just wipe it off. And then of course, when it comes to your bow hair, you can actually wash this, no? How do you wash it? So you take off the screw and then luluwag siya. Now, you can dip this in alcohol, no? Like denatured alcohol, yung iba ganun yung ginagawa. And then just air dry. Make sure lang na hindi didikit yung stick when you do that, no? When you wipe it with denatured alcohol. Or you can also do it with running water and dishwashing liquid or liquid soap. Don't use shampoo kasi syempre lalambot yung buhok. Baka hindi mo na siya magamit. Kaya the horror stories, no, from other colleagues na sinampoo nila yung buhok, ano nangyari, hindi na tumunog ng ayos, nasira lang lalo, no? Of course, if you really need a rehair, better get a rehair than just washing it off. But if bago pa yung hair tapos medyo nangingitim lang, pwede pa naman siyang hugasan. Just make sure you air dry it and don't get any type of moisture in contact with your bow so that you save your bow's life. So again, cleaning your instrument is as important as practicing. Okay? Tandaan natin yan. It's not something you should take for granted, but you should have the right tools and try not to overcomplicate things, no? I mean, you could buy like cleaners and everything, pero sabi din nila that you don't have to use dedicated cleaners all the time. Kasi ginagamit lang siya to deep clean your instrument. And if you're not sure of what you're doing, ask a professional for help. But yeah, best thing you can do is just always bring a piece of cloth with you inside your case para after every use, you wipe it down. Ayan, sana nakatulong tong video na to. If you did, drop a like, comment down below more content you'd like to see, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. My course on Udemy is still available. Check it out if you don't have time for lessons but want to learn on your own pace. Check it out. And of course, follow me on all my socials. Links down in the description box below. This has been Ryan Monakil for Violin Tips and Tricks, and I'll see you on the next